Not trying to swindle me, are you?
Hey, you're forgetting my finder's fee.
Mind tricks gonna work on me. Only money.
They should have explained that Toydaria is a neutral system.
What's up, MetaNerdz? This video is going to be a complete breakdown of the Toydarian species, looking at the world they evolved on, their biology, culture, history, and impact on the galaxy at large. But first I want to thank this video's sponsor, Karma. Karma is available as both an app and Chrome extension that'll give you notifications on price drops and coupons for items that you're looking for. There's a download link in the description, it takes a couple seconds to install, and it's all really straightforward to use. I use Karma to save 10% on our Stormtrooper helmet. Thanks, Karma! On the homepage, you'll see trending stores, recently visited sites, and deals. And Karma works perfect on mobile as well. Just head to the App Store, download, and log in. All just takes a few seconds, and you will see everything laid out easy to use. When you find an item, just hit these three dots, and tap the Save button with the little blue Karma logo, and it'll be added to your list. It's super easy to track the price of something. Just hit the blue circle and select if you want any price change alerts or just at a certain percentage. Then pick what list you want to add it to. You can get notified when there's a price drop or if an item comes back into stock via email or mobile push. I have a MetaNerdz Army and General Star Wars list, hoping to snag some great deals and some more of those helmets for our studio. And when I was looking for armor for the MetaNerdz Army, Karma Gives popped up, which is a program where they match some savings and donate it to a charity of your choosing. Karma will also scan the web for coupon codes, but this is a special feature only available on your computer, so that web extension is a must. This is all completely free, so with stuff like cashback, the charity split, and the tracking of your items when they go on sale, or with the coupons, this is a no-brainer. Just go down in the description and start saving money today with Karma. Let's get back to the Toydarians. To start their story, we'll have to head to grid coordinates R11, located in the mid-rim, an area that has fallen within Hutt space for as long as maps like these have been charted. Toydaria revolved around a binary star system, being in the 4th orbital position with 3 moons and a diameter of 7,900 kilometers, making it about 67% the size of Coruscant, while having a normal day-night cycle, which lasted 21 hours. The world was covered in some mountains, but it was mostly covered in thick swamps and fields of muck that stretched for hundreds of miles. The swamps were filled with a variety of fish, reptiles, and bugs, while everything was covered in thousands of types of algae and mushrooms. The first, and arguably still most successful product of evolutionary pressures, was the grab worm. It might not be an intimidating name, but it rocketed to the top of the food chain, becoming a 12-foot-long, streamlined predator that could effortlessly zip through thick muck, bodies of water, or up trees. Many species went extinct due to the grab worm, while those species that could fly now had a great advantage. The Toydarians are classified as mammals, and they have a general humanoid form as far as the limbs and sensory organs, even hair growing on the head, long eyelashes, and beards on the males. Their large eyes help them to see grub worms that were hunting them at night in the dark swamp forests, while the long snout helped to process smells and hold their prey in place, while their 3-fingered hands would guide mostly fish into their mouth, or would be impaled by these pairs of tusks on their upper and lower jaws. While their feet were webbed for walking over mucky terrain and swimming, and though their insect-like wings might seem too small for their apparent weight, they are actually a relatively light species. The problem is that to others they both look and act like gluttons. But what looks like a gut is actually a dense collection of spongy tissue that collects air from the environment and turns it into a lighter-than-air gas to help negate some of their weight. So not a potbelly, but a sort of organic blimp, and somewhat like a swim bladder in fish that can help them control their depth in water. This combined with their wings, which beat nearly 10 times a second, made it so they were rarely ever on their feet. But these wings also required a lot of energy, and Toydarians had a hyperactive metabolism, so they have what looks like a large gut and were often seen devouring enormous amounts of food, generating a negative stereotype amongst a lot of alien species. Being mammals, they would give live birth and emerge from their mothers fully formed and able to fly. It is unclear at what year they matured or were able to reproduce, but adults would reach a height of 1.2 meters or 4 feet, though with those wings they were able to get eye to eye with other taller species. And they actually lived slightly longer than many other humanoids, averaging 91 standard years. And as for their skin color, it could range from reds and oranges to blues and greens, with cream-colored stomachs, hands, and feet. There is one final oddity about their biology I want to mention before we get into their history, and it has to do with swamp fairies. Named Shaurin, these creatures provided the evolutionary pressures that resulted in Toydarians having a near-complete immunity to force mind tricks. They were tall and thin green amphibians, with similar spongy tissued bodies like the Toydarians, but they had leathery tendrils that would wrap around their prey and extract nutrients. They're also one of the rare species, like the Ysalmiri, Convor, Voxen, and Hissis, that evolved around using the Force. The Shaoran used it to create an illusion in the minds of their prey, appearing as a white, yellowish light that induced euphoria and a sense of friendship. The victim would black out while having their blood drained via these tendrils, all while thinking they were in the loving embrace of a swamp fairy. Some immunity to force mind tricks is due to someone's willpower, but in a lot of species it's actually on their biological makeup, the structure of their brain, and so genetic variation among their species was eliminated until only those Toydarians with a brain structure that prevented force suggestions was all that remained within their species. These people would spend their lives hunting and foraging for edible algae and mushrooms, and occasionally waging intense clan wars on each other resulting from food shortages. They were so vindictive that if they were starving, they would often poison their neighbors' food supplies under a popular phrase that roughly translates to, "If we can't have it, no one can." They didn't even have standing armies or a warrior class, but this mentality was found all over the globe. It was something like a crusade where they would all get riled up and head out, but instead of any ideas of reclaiming something, it was simply to steal food and to destroy a rival's prosperous area. This was done for as long as they could remember, but it would also go away as quickly as it started, usually only happening once every 30 years. But once everybody had enough food, they would go back to being peaceful, and there are no accounts of lasting tribal feuds. No revenge for a previous attack, just this strange sense of moral outrage that their neighbor had food seems to be the only thing that spawned anger in them. And that might have been the most complex aspect of their civilization if it wasn't for the arrival of a powerful alien species. One fateful day, a flotilla of ships started to descend through the thick, foggy atmosphere. Massive, armored slugs started firing on the grabworms, while stunning crafts soared over the swamps. And metallic beings called droids listened to the screaming and confused Toydarians, driven into a panic by this alien invasion. These translator droids were able to decipher the native tongue and establish communication between them and the aliens called Hutts. The giant slugs said they came in peace and only wanted to share their technology and civilizational organization strategies. In fact, a Hutt leader named Zajin once said, quote, "Millennia ago, we were idolized by the younger species. We brought a golden age to 1,000,000 worlds." In fact, the Hutt Empire predates the Old Republic, and it did provide an instant galactic leap in technology. Modern cities and spaceports were built, while a feudal monarchy was established, with Hutts residing in these high-tech palaces, giving orders to the appointed Toydarian lords, which were just the elders of their clans. They were shown advanced farming techniques, utilizing the mineral-rich muck fields, and eventually they would grow enough that their census would show that their major exports are food and labor. Labor being a euphemism for the Hutts selling them into slavery, used in places where they could put those wings to good use. The Hutts did build a rail system for the Toydarians to travel from city to city, but this was in part because they were denied the use of any flying craft, while the Hutt lords floated over their subjects in their elegant caravels, like the Celestis II. It was easy to control this world as the only place to land were on these Hutt-made cities, as most ships would sink into the muck, and there were no big patches of dry, solid land. We can also assume that these cities likely had some sort of tech that would keep the grabworms from slithering up out of the muck. Under this Hutt leadership, they would spawn major cities like Arnell, Riar, Royal City, and Toydor, getting up to a population of 11 million, being 79% Toydarian, 18% Hutt, and 3% other, including those that served the Hutts. Over time, their Hutt overlords refined their ruling strategies, allowing Toydarians to rule as king, and to fill up the lower noble positions, using a pretty widespread strategy at preventing revolts by having your rulers look like your subjects, while in reality, all of these nobles still reported to the Hutts. One of these new faces was Baron Riel, who would have to oversee all of the changes in property ownership from one Toydarian to another, while still having the royal right to take ownership of anything. And although he was loved by the people and adamant that he was independent of any Hutt influence, he would funnel materials to certain Hutt criminals, and even let them use the royal guard when they visited cities on world. Criminal elements were drawn to the hallucinogenic mushrooms found in the swamps. The most loved were the gray and black gabaki shrooms, which grew out of the droppings of the Shaoran, the swamp fairies. The gray ones would be dried, and when lit, it would burn in a beautiful color and release a smoke that most species found relaxing and euphoric. It wasn't incredibly strong or addictive, and most cantinas would use it sort of like a CBD incense, burning it in the front of stores to make patrons more calm, happy, and pliable to salesmen. But the black gabaki was a form of spice, making this one of the few sources of natural spice in the galaxy, the largest being on Ryloth. This was turned into Neutron Pixie, one of the most powerful drugs in the galaxy, a hallucinogenic spice that gave an ecstatic feeling, increased reaction time, greater resistance to pain, and perceived increases in strength and endurance, while its crash induced heavy sweating, nausea, body sores, and deliria. To process this drug, it needed to be immediately flash frozen, as it would wither and lose its spice potency within hours. This was a great boon to the Hutt drug network, and it became so popular that it was flavored by a variety of fruits loved by all sorts of species. And since it grew out of fairy dung, it was incredibly dangerous for alien species who were unaware of the Shauran's horrors. So the Hutts established holoprojector warnings to protect exotic game hunters who might venture out there. But this was great luck for the Hutts, since they were also immune to force suggestion like the Toydarians. It would simply blast the tentacled horrors, not being tricked into seeing them as some etheric light beings. Interestingly, Watto went out of his way to maintain a Naomis flower, keeping it in a climate-controlled chamber that mimicked the damp swamps of home. It is unknown the significance that this had for him, but we can assume that it was probably very valuable, and possibly a source of rare spice or a medicine. Because of their serfdom to the Hutts, they were able to stay neutral in most galactic conflicts that swept the galaxy, including the Clone Wars. The one time they made an exception, with King Katuunko allowing the Republic to build a base within Toydarian territory, Dooku dispatched Savage Opress to respond, delivering a brutal, public, and disrespectful death. Even under the Empire, there was no real Imperial presence on Toydaria, as the Hutts agreed to respect Palpatine as the true ruler of the underworld, knowing they would leave the Hutts to manage it all as long as they did what he asked. But when the Yuuzhan Vong invaded, they would take this world on their push through Hutt space and into the core. Though they never really did get a strong foothold, as all the Toydarians sprung into a flying, guerrilla-fighting frenzy. Taking the foggy swamps was nearly impossible, and the grab worms that had shaped their very biology by devouring all those who could not fly were now becoming the inadvertent heroes of Toydaria, as they struck like lightning, Vong being hit and dragged into the mud in the blink of an eye. While under the New Republic, the Hutts were never really on good terms with those righteous leaders, and again Toydaria would remain isolated and secure. And the Toydarians went back to their timeless fight, keeping off negative stereotypes as being gluttonous, underworld-connected slobs. So that's it for their breakdown, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind-the-scenes stuff. The Toydarians have one of the most dichotomous images in the minds of fans, being the gross evil Watto that kept little slave Annie, and the bounty broker Roz, who was beloved by Jango and all of us who met her. It was a strange religious group, the Church of Toydaria, which ran ads on Coruscant reading, "Why? Why not? Not everything is black and white," seeming to imply it promoted some sort of moral relativity, but it is unclear if it was created by the Toydarians or Offworlders. Maybe they simply used the difficult, remote terrain to meditate, but perhaps they even risked communing with the fairy spirits. I could see it very plausible that some force-immune species like the natives could take naive Offworlders, let them experience these seemingly supernatural fairy creatures, whisking them away before they were devoured, and then hitting them up for donations. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Their species was introduced with Watto, and their planet was first shown in the Clone Wars episode Supply Lines. While a lot of details came from the Essential Guide to Alien Species, Complete Locations, Atlas, and Guide to Warfare, as well as the role-playing guide Edge of Empire, Lords of Nal Hutta. But that's it for the Toydarian species. The best way to help me out is to hit that like button and leave a comment. Share with someone who might like it, and subscribe if you want to see more. While you can also check out the description for free Audible audiobooks and discounts on these amazing metal print arts. You can also see our Patreon and PayPal, and special thanks to our supporters over on Patreon, especially our $25 tier, Matthew Beltrami, Bill Payne, and Brandon Robinson. But most important of all, remember, not all Toydarians make bets thinking they just sent a child to their fiery death. Some also sell addictive mushrooms, and trick rich Coruscanti kids into thinking they had a religious experience by exposing them to Swamp Cthulhu. And the Force will be with you. Always.